What's up, guys? Got the whole crew back together, clean pocket, back in action, talking football today. We're gonna dive into some teams in the NFC, talk about ball.
Quit blaming the coach all the time, Kyle.
What is this for Kyler? Is this a make or break year?
He's gonna be the red zone target.
We play against them every year. They always kicked our ass.
Not all the time.
They have a chance to win it all.
Arizona Cardinals drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., kind of paired him up with Kyler, big physical receiver. We obviously watched him a lot, doing some draft breakdowns. Love the addition of him, but what's the state of the Cardinals right now?
I think they still have a long way to go. I don't think they made enough moves, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're addressing the offensive side. I still think, you know, when we were really good, whenever I played here in 2015, we had as good a defense as there was in the NFL. When you look at that defense, they got guys that play hard. I just don't think they have super talented guys on that side of the ball. And they've let some guys walk out the building that were key pieces. JJ obviously retired. Like, there's some different guys that they have had that were much more talented than I think the group they have right now. But offensively, I think they're making all the right moves. They're building the right way. I just still think they're still going to be in the bottom.
I agree with AQ. I think the defense is just a little bit further away than they need to be to compete in the NFC West. I love what Kyler was able to come back and do that last year. And then, obviously, we know these guys. And I've seen some pictures and videos of Kyler with trips with the O-line, going to a basketball game, going to a Diamondbacks game. It's kind of stuff that you love to see from a team. I think the offense is trending up. You got Paris Johnson coming back at right tackle. They signed Jonah Williams. You got Kelvin Beachum, a good swing tackle in there. Will Hernandez is playing well. I really love what they did on offense, and then the tight end really came on last year. Trey McBride really came out of left field. So you add him into the mix. I think that they're going to be great on offense. Again, that what you mentioned yesterday, Kyler being able to kind of pull it once or twice a game to keep that defense playing, you know, with an extra defender in the box to account for the quarterback. They're going to run the ball, and then who runs harder than James Conner? My favorite running back in the NFL. The guy is a beast.
Love him, yeah.
Yeah, and surprisingly, Arizona was fourth in the league in rushing offense last year. Connor had a big year, and they can do that. They got the physical guys on up front, like you guys mentioned. That'll help Kyler a lot. I don't think Arizona wants to rely, despite how good his arm is and how talented he can flick the ball and move around, rely on Kyler a whole lot. The key for them is to keep the ball, convert some third downs, eat up some clock, keep their defense fresh. They got to keep their defense fresh, right? And in order to do that, James Conner, Trey Benson, who they drafted in the third round, I think. He's a good player, so those guys got to be heavily involved. And then when you get in the red zone, I told you before the draft that Marvin Harrison Jr. will make any red zone offense a hell of a lot better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He can run those slants, those tough glances, those tough corner routes, those tough fade balls, line them up in the slot and run a stomp route. So you're going to have safety over the top of him. And I say he's going to help not just by his production, but James Conner will get a lot of relief because they're going to have to play safeties over the top of him. So they have a chance to really make some strides in a positive way, but I agree with you guys. I don't think they're ready quite yet.
Going into this year, like, what is this for Kyler? Is this a make or break year? Is this, you know, does he have to show you something? Like, you know, we live in the Valley. We hear all these things. We play with Kyler. I love Kyler. You know, he had the quote earlier in the offseason saying, "I'm more locked in than any other quarterback in the league right now," right? And I think that's maybe accurate, right? Like, he battled his injury last year. He came back, played pretty good down the stretch. They've added Marvin Harrison. Trey McBride is sort of an X factor. He's always going to be featured in the offense. Great run game with James Conner. I mean, like, for Kyler, is this like is the team looking at him like this is we got to see it this year? Or is he the guy they're building everything around?
I think he showed a lot coming back last year because I'll be honest, I would have been the first skeptic to think, I know what it's like coming back from an ACL, and like, especially for a skill guy that relies on that speed, what makes him who he is that burst, that wiggle, right? And I was like, oh, he's not going to be the same. And he was. Like, he really was. I thought he played every bit as dynamic.
He played really good.
Yeah, I thought he played great last year. And so, obviously, they want to see the next step. Is it always just individual performance at this point? Or now do we need to see, let's go to the playoffs, let's win a playoff game? Now, obviously, they didn't do enough to help surround him with the talent on both sides of the ball. Obviously, offensively, they're there, I think. I think defensively, they got to take the next step. So I don't think it's a make or break, and I think the contract obviously alludes to that. But I do think they need to see some more growth.
I think it is a make or break year. I mean, you have the pieces on offense. You're trending in the right direction. He's healthy. You got to see, like, if you see the quarterback for the next 5, 6, 7 years, I think this is the year to really see that. I don't think they have the talent on defense just yet. They're building towards it. I think Monty's done a great job. I love kind of his vision and how he's approached it. But on the offensive side of the ball, we need to see some points scored. We need to see the offense taking the pressure off the defense so they don't have to go out there and only let up 14 points in a game to win. So there definitely is some pressure on Kyler. People are ready to see, hey, you're in year 6 that he's in now. Let's start getting to the playoffs. Let's start being competitive in every game.
Yeah, it's a make or break year for the coach too, Gannon and Drew Petzing. Is he the offensive coordinator?
Yep.
These guys got to put him in a position to succeed. They got to help him out a lot. And Kyler's got to put the time in and work in. I don't know all the video game stuff and all that is true, but he's got to commit himself fully to this organization and to pro football. Not saying he hasn't, but I'm saying if those rumors are what they are, if you have something in your contract where you can't play a video game, there's an issue there. So commit yourself to the game. You got some weapons around. You got a hell of a back. You got Zay Jones now. You got McBride. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. We got no excuses on offense. Play well. Defense can't do their thing. You score 28 points and still lose. I just want to see you progress, make plays. Critical situations, third down, red zone, those are important things for Kyler to improve on.
Yeah. I think a good offseason under his belt. I know he cares. I know he feels like I've got some weapons. Like, I love Kyler. I think he can do it. I'm excited to watch the Cardinals this year. But let's go higher, lower. Marvin Harrison, 1,050 yards receiving.
Higher. I think he lives up to the hype. His dad played in the NFL. Shout out to Syracuse. We do have a couple good players that played there. And, I think he comes onto the scene. He knows what to expect. He knows how to be a pro. He's always produced when he's on the field, so I think he will do that.
I'm going to go lower, actually. I'm still ticked off he didn't run a 40. That ticks me off. I don't know why. It just rubs me wrong. Most competitive guys that are fast, they want to show off my 40 time, You're going to pull a muscle. You're a sprinter. So I'm going to go lower. I think Zay Jones and McBride and those guys will get some work. But I still think this team is going to revolve around Connor in the running game. They got to really do a good job in that running game.
That's their identity.
And I think you'll get the red zone targets. You'll get a lot of opportunities in the red zone.
7.5 receiving touchdowns.
I'll go higher for sure for touchdowns. That's where he's going to make his hay.
I'll go for the yards first. I'll go higher because I've watched Kyler. I played with him, and I've watched kind of the way this whole thing, when protections break down and he spins out, he's looking to go deep, and I think that's going to be his answer. So I'll go higher on that. I'll also go higher on 7.5 touchdowns because I do think, like Coach Jay Gruden says over there, he's going to be the red zone target.
He just gives you an added element that they haven't had, right?
Agree.
He's never talking about Greg Dortch. I mean, he's a good player too, man.
Light the Dortch.
Light the Dortch.
Love Greg.
And Rondale Moore's not there, so Greg Dortch is going to come on this year. He's a sleeper in fantasy because Rondale Moore no longer is there and kind of taking up that slot role. I think Dortch is going to be working across the middle as well.
Great returner, but great in the slot. When he gets the ball in his hand, he's a small dude, but he plays big all the time. One guy's not going to bring him down. He's confident. Love his game. Moving on, Seattle Seahawks, right? Lots of change there. New coach. He's probably going to call the defensive side of the ball. Mike McDonald, Grubb is the new addition on offense, came over from Washington. Like, this just feels like a whole different Seahawks football team, right?
It does, but for me, it excites me a lot because here's the deal. This is why I like this team. I liked them last year, minus their defense. I think Mike McDonald's pressure packages is going to get them back to the defenses that we saw in 2012 through 15. They don't have the talent that they had then, but I think you can make up for that in scheme, and I think he's going to do a great job with that. Offensively, I think Geno's good enough. I think their scheme is good enough. I think Kenneth Walker's an absolute dog.
Walker's great.
Absolute dog. And then you got Metcalf, you got an aging Lockett, and you got Smith-njigba. I think they got as good a talent as maybe the whole NFL. Now, whether or not they can put it all together, I think they have a good offensive line. Now, the question then becomes, can the defense do it? And I think that's where Mike McDonald comes in. I think they get over the hump a little bit this year.
I'm a little nervous about Seattle. Pete Carroll left. He didn't want to leave. Now it's coming out that he was forced out. There's just some whispers around. He's taken all the pictures are all coming down. They don't talk about, the former glory days of the Seahawks anymore. It'll be a different year. The culture will be different. I think it's going to be a lot stricter than when Carroll's there. And I think there's going to be a little bit of pushback from the players. A lot of these guys have spent their whole career in Seattle, and we always have heard how great it is to play there. I think there's going to be a little bit of a culture shock, and I think we're going to see some of these guys throughout the years phasing out of Seattle. I love Geno. Play with him in New York. I think they have all the weapons. They're going to lean heavily on the run game. Charbonnet is another guy that when he came in last year, he was running angry. I think they're going to lean a little bit more on the run game, even though they have all those weapons at receiver.
I think it's all about. We talked about the defense. I think they're going to improve with the with the head coach there, McDonald from Baltimore. They've always put up good defenses and good scheme, not just good players, but a good scheme. It's all going to come down to Ryan Grubb coming from University of Washington. I like their offense at Washington. They weren't really a heavy running team, I don't think, at Washington.
They had a great passing attack.
They had a pretty good passing attack.
Yeah, they pushed the ball down the field. It was fun to watch.
I think he's got to come in and realize, hey, and Geno's got to, Geno had a really good year, really proved himself to be a good starting quarterback in the league. Then he kind of has fizzled out a little bit. He's kind of teetering around mediocrity for the last year and a half or so. They got the weapons, and I just want to see Geno take a major step forward. He's a veteran guy now. I know it's going to be a new offense, but you got good players. You got a good running game. You got 3 excellent receivers. Tight end's good. Noah Fant's a heck of a player. So Geno has got to make the plays. He's got to eliminate the horrific sack fumbles, the negative plays out of his repertoire. Learn how to throw it away. I mean, he's a veteran now. He can't put his team in those situations, 3rd and 20. You know what I mean? I want to see Geno take the next step. If he can do that, I think McDonald will bring enough defensively to make Seattle a very interesting team.
Do you see, is Sam Howell going to play this year there? I mean, he played well last year at times in Washington.
It's Geno's team for sure, but if he struggles and makes those same mistakes, Sam's a great competitor, but when you watch him side by side in practice and OTAs and all that stuff, Geno's a much better passer. Gotcha. You know what I mean? But when you put Sam Howell in the game, that's where he brings his competitive juices out. He's a really good competitor. But Geno right now, it's his team. He just got to continue to get better and not make those monumental mistakes.
Do you have Geno? He's ranked 16A in your rankings?
I'd say he's about 14C.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
With the ability to get to 8.
Yeah.
How about that?
All right, higher or lower, Geno Smith, 3,400 passing yards.
I'm going to go higher on that just strictly because of the new offensive coordinator and what I watched at Washington. And they have a ton of talent. They pushed the ball down the field at Washington. I think they have the talent to push the ball down the field with these guys there.
I'm going to go higher as well. The weapons are there. Play action's there. I think Geno's going to do it this year. They have the talent.
Yeah, I'm going to go higher as well. Based on what I saw at Ryan Grubb's offense, he's going to air it out and take a lot of shots. And the good thing about them, they have the speed with Tyler Lockett to take the top off. They got the physicality with DK Metcalf to run after the catch. And then smith-njigba is really starting to come on. I expect a lot of good things from him this year.
For sure.
Major improvement from him in numbers.
Yep, I'm going to take the higher 22.5 pass TDs from Geno Smith. I'm with you. I love what Washington did last year. They pushed the ball in the field. They got in stack formations, bunch formations. They were running all kinds of fun stuff to watch when you break them down. And so I think if Geno stays healthy, right, I mean, a starting quarterback in the NFL should throw more than 22 touchdowns.
You would have to think.
With that group.
Especially with the high-flying attack that they're bringing in. That's the whole reason why they went and got him, right? The last 2 years, I mean, we've watched their offense, I guess really the last 3 or 4 years. They've gone 13 personnel with 3 tight ends and relied heavy on the run and then just play action, take a shot here and there. So you're not expecting that. But now I think it's going to be, let's go empty, let's open it up, let's go 5 wide and get the ball down the field.
What do we expect from the Rams and Sean McVay in 2024?
They made a run last year. I mean, they were a team that, I think didn't have a ton of expectations last year and really surprised a lot of people, I thought. Listen, when they got Stafford at quarterback, they got a chance, right?
No doubt.
I think we've all talked about this. We know the talent that guy has and possesses and the way that he can throw the ball. It's phenomenal, and they've rebuilt their offensive line a little bit. They let some guys go, but they've retooled it in the draft. They got a guy last year early. They got some guys this year. Defensively, they obviously lose a monster piece, but sometimes that works out, right? You can replace with multiple guys. Who knows? I mean, it's hard to say that with a 10-year guy that was arguably the best player that's ever played the game, right? And so they're going to have to fill that, but they had a young guy that could have won Rookie of the Year last year in Kobe Turner playing the same position basically. So I still have good expectations, and obviously Sean's a genius. He's going to call a great game. They got a ton of talent still. They're going to be in the mix.
Lost Raheem Morris. They'll have a little bit of changes on defense, but I think for me, just looking at them on paper, right, you always have a chance with Stafford, but the 1-2 punch with Kyren Williams and Blake Corum, that's a pretty good combination.
I wouldn't bet against McVay. I mean, last year they were in cap hell. They were starting to, what was Puka last year? 4th, 5th round pick. And then all of a sudden he goes out there and just produces that levels we've never seen from a rookie wide receiver before. I also like what they did in the draft. You mentioned Aaron Donald leaving, maybe the best to ever do it, but they replaced him with Jared Verse and Fisk, who we love as a 1-2 punch. They clearly know the value of the defensive line. They spent some draft capital there. I like what the Rams do. They're always well coached. They bring in Jonah Jackson, who I think is one of the best guards in football. Explosive. It's going to be a huge loss for the Lions, but the Rams gain. I really like the Rams. We play against them every year. They always kicked our ass when we were in Arizona, so not much has changed there.
Playoffs for sure.
Anytime you have that guy at your quarterback, you got a chance, right? He's as good as there is in the NFL. He might be 1D. We talked about A, B, and C. This guy might be 1D. Yeah. I mean, his arm strength and arm talent is really
ridiculous.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Right? And they got Cooper Kupp coming back full strength. Obviously, Puka's a big add. And you guys mentioned it. Their running game is a lot better than people give him credit for. Kyren Williams is really emerged as a good player.
Yes.
And Sean's always been good at running the weak side zones and all that stuff, and using the jet sweep motions and dressing up, making the same play look different all the time. That's really what his masterpiece is. And then the naked bootlegs off of him. He gets people open. He makes plays easy for the quarterback, and then the quarterback can take the hard plays and make the right decisions and make the throws, the tough throws, the tight window throws, the no-look passes, holding hook defender over here and then throwing the basic right behind his head. I mean, they have a chance to win it all, not just the division, in my opinion, if Matthew stays healthy. Now, Chris Shula's got to do a good job on the defensive side of the ball. Raheem was a good defensive coordinator, and they got a couple really good, young, talented players on defense. At linebacker, they got a couple good corners, so that's going to be the key for them moving forward. Offensively, I'm not worried about them. They'll average 27, 28 points a game. Can they get some stops when they need to?
Yeah.
Can they get the other team's offense off the field on third down? That'll be the key to the Rams in the long haul. But offensively, there's a lot of fantasy options on that team now.
Yeah.
One of the storylines with the Rams was they went from a lot of the zone scheme to the gap scheme. As a coach, would you ever go into a season and try to force a square peg into the round hole, hey, this is what we're running, or let your players dictate the kind of scheme?
I thought both of them were important to have on your team. I never went into a game with just gap schemes. We're going to run duo power, that's it, counter. You know what I mean? I think it's important to have a good combination of inside zone, outside zone, a couple gap schemes. Let your linemen fire off. The gap schemes, they like to hold the doubles and then get off on the linebacker. The zone schemes, you got to have a little more athletic linemen. So sometimes the outside zones, if you're a gap team with the big physical guys, are a little bit harder to run the outside zones because they don't have the same movement skills. So when I took over Washington, we had little linemen because they were an outside zone scheme. We had to adjust. We wanted to run more gap schemes, so we drafted Brandon Sheriff and Morgan Moses and Spencer Long and Chase Roulier, and we kind of went into the more gap scheme, but we still ran a lot of inside zones and outside zones. But I think you got to have a little bit of combination of both.
The one concern I have with this group, they've had Coleman Shelton, who we know, he was in Arizona with Justin and I. He was their center the last couple years. Matthew has had his center. Coleman is gone. They are moving Steve Avila from TCU, who they drafted and played every play at guard last year, into center. And like every coach or GM, they think, oh, we can just make everybody a center. It isn't as easy as people think.
That scares the hell out of me, too.
Scares the hell out of me.
I don't like that at all.
And they let the backup go. Brian Allen's now in Cleveland.
Correct.
Another good player. So they have no one that's have any center experience in LA on the roster.
Talk about that
a little bit more.
In training camp, that could change.
That probably will change.
Because, for me, why we're playing at the highest level, professional football. Why you take a guard who played all year at guard and move him over to center?
And he played well. He played well at guard.
It's a totally different position, right? Now you're communicating everything. You're calling out defenses. You're spitting calls all the way down the line, both ways. You're snapping the football. You're blocking different people. It's crazy. I don't understand why teams don't draft centers.
We saw a prime example. He was like, just throw your arms up there and block the guy. Everyone, like AQ said, a lot of people think it's easy to play center in the NFL.
Especially front office. Front office thinks it more than anybody. They're like, oh, this guy isn't working out tackle, or this guy isn't working out guard. We'll just put him at
right guard.
We'll just make him a center. And my answer is always this. Okay, yeah, it's real easy until you got Vita Vea an inch from your face with your hand between your legs, and then you got to block him.
Well, understand this, too. Back a few years ago, you could only dress 7 linemen, so your guards had to be versatile. They had to play both center and guard and both guards, and maybe a tackle had to learn. Because your 6th lineman was usually a backup tackle. Your 7th lineman was probably a backup swing guy.
Inside guy, yeah.
Now teams are able to dress 8, so you might be able to get away with drafting pure centers. But surely, throughout the course of last year and training camp and all that stuff, Steve was getting some snaps at center and working. So they wouldn't just say, hey, Steve, come on in the office, buddy. we're moving you to center. He has to have some kind of experience at center, I would think.
You know what his experience is going to be? He probably got some quarterback center exchange in pre-practice. I bet you that's all he got.
There you have it. He's good to go.
Just put your forearms up, Steve. You're going to be all right.
I never said put your forearms up. Quit saying that.
I like that.
As a backup quarterback for a lot of my career, I was always the one that stayed after practice and like, hey, work these left guard, right guard, emergency situations. Like, make sure you're getting some snaps to them every day. It was brutal. Like, you're teaching them how to snap the football, where to hit your hand, shotgun snaps, cadences, all these things that they understand all that, but actually doing it in a live game, man, it's tricky.
When bullets are flying, it's a whole different deal.
Yeah, that's one thing that Cooper Kupp and Puka can do is block. Mm-hmm. They can motion down. You can run all your play actions off of the same look, right? They're inserting, they're blocking safeties. It's pretty ridiculous what those guys can do and what they're willing to do. Do you think the Rams are going to win the division?
No.
Niners.
I think it'll be a dog fight. Yeah, it'll be closer than people think. I think the Rams are going to really compete for that. They're pretty talented, and they have a much better quarterback than the 49ers have.
You think about the 49ers, and everybody's talking about Kyle Shanahan. Is there any truth to the narrative that Kyle can't win the big one? I mean, Jay, he's been in the Super Bowl 3 times, twice as a head coach, and his losses come against the 2 best players in our generation, Tom Brady, Pat Mahomes. Like, I mean, what do we expect for Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers this year?
I really expect the 49ers to be the best team in the NFC.
Yeah.
They didn't lose anybody. How do you have a team like that and not really lose anybody? Key losses, I look on my cheat sheet, Sam Darnold. That's it. They kept everybody else in place. McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Deebo, Aiyuk.
They lost, what, Armstead?
Kittle.
That's it?
Armstead and Kinlaw, they lost.
Kinlaw
and Armstead.
Kinlaw.
Okay, but I
got
mean,
some good ones. I think they got Malik Collins.
Yeah,
and
so this
was a
team,
great defensive
Right,
tackle.
like
John
replaced him
Lynch
with good
deserves
players.
a lot of credit. This GM,
For
John
sure.
Lynch, for his ability to play with the cap. You're a cap master. Keep these good players in place. I think they better do it this year. This is a big year for them because eventually Aiyuk's going to be gone. Deebo's coming up.
You got to
Trent's
pay
getting
Purdy.
a little bit older. Purdy's contract's going to come up. McCaffrey, he's reaching that running back old age limit, you know. So this is a huge year for them to make it happen. And they can do it, obviously, with the team that they have. The receiving core is a big physical group. You mentioned Puka and Cooper Kupp as great blockers. This team has the best blocking receiving core, and it's not even close.
Yes.
Deebo, Aiyuk, and
Jennings
is
is
a
unbelievable.
Monster.
Unbelievable. So they don't have a weakness on offense at all, other than the young Brock Purdy. And he obviously shown he can manage this offense and do a lot of great things, make some big plays. So moving forward, a year of experience, another year of experience for Purdy, a healthy offensive line, a defense that is still very, very talented with the Bosa and the pass rush that they have. This team should be the favorite to go back to the Super Bowl.
Right. They moved Nick Sorensen to defensive coordinator. Do you see that being like positive, negative? Does it matter? Right. This group that they have on defense is ridiculous. I mean, Fred Warner's a monster, leads that defense right up front.
They get the safety back who missed all last year too, right? So, I mean, they are reloading. So that they're. But you're right. As a defensive coordinator, and there's a lot of coordinators in here for the first time. They're calling plays and they're coming up with game plans on their own for the first time. Just because you work for somebody doesn't mean you're that somebody. Now you have to come up with the third down blitz plan. Now you have to come up with the red zone plan. Now you have to come up with the first down play action plans. Now you got to call the plays on third down. Now you got to be ready. If the coach says, hey, we're going for it on fourth down. What? Oh, God. You know what I mean? What am I going to call? Over cover 3? No,
What's good on defense, they brought in Brandon Staley from the Chargers, who's going to sit in that senior advisor role. So it'll be good to have someone that's been a head coach, a defensive coordinator, being there to kind of have his back. Niners are my favorite team in the NFL. If I was building a team, this is how I would build it. Put the best talent around a quarterback that's capable and just go out there and get after it. I mean, John Lynch was never a GM. He was never a scout. He was a player. I think Shanahan plays a very important role. I think he's the best head coach in the NFL. I don't think Deebo is on Week 1's roster. Brandon Aiyuk wants a new contract. He's the best receiver on the team. Deebo is amazing, great player. But he's had some injury history. I think Deebo gets moved during training camp, and Ricky Pearsall comes in there and he starts doing some things. I think Deebo's on the move.
Ricky. Ricky's a good player.
First rounder.
He's going to be a fun guy to watch.
He's a local kid in Arizona. Yeah, no, listen, we talk all the time. I mean, how many times did I come to you throughout the year? Check out this play from San Francisco. Look at this run game.
Yeah.
It's the best run game in all of football, and it's simple. They just do it so well. There's some eye candy, and they got arguably the best left tackle to maybe ever play the game, who you guys know very well.
Hard to argue that.
Hard to argue that. But listen, here's what they do so well. They know what they do. They don't stray from it. You got all this talent, maybe as good a receiving group in the NFL, and what do? You go out in the first round and get another weapon, right? Like, they're just continuing to add weapons. Going to Nick Sorensen, what's interesting, I think when they had Steve Wilkes last year, they went away from the Robert Saleh. They went away from the D'Amico Ryans, upfield attacking. They played more, wide threes, get the backers in the A-gap like Steve Wilkes did in Carolina. I think by getting rid of Steve Wilkes and going Nick Sorensen, they're going to get back to that attacking and that defense. In the middle of the year, all the way into the playoffs, there was a lot of gaps. There was a lot of holes in that defense. I think that goes away.
I love Nick Sorensen, man. I played with him when I was in Cleveland. Special teams captain. He was a special teams coordinator for a while, I think, at the Seahawks, right? And now he's calling the defense in San Francisco. I mean, he's been around the game a long time, played the game. I think he's going to be pretty good.
I would like to mention one other guy that never gets mentioned, Chris Furster. All right,
Love him.
is the best line coach in football, in my opinion. I had him 1 year at Washington. My
Love
first
him.
year, he ended up leaving with contract issues and all that stuff. But this guy coaches the running game as good as anybody. The outside zones, the footwork. I know what footwork is. The ability to get up to the next level, the combination blocks. He's awesome in pass protection. He deserves a lot of credit. He just never gets any. I just want to give a shout out to my guy.
Love Furster. Love him a lot. I learned a bunch of football from him that first year in Washington.
Yep.
He was great.
So NFC West, where do they rank in the division power
They're
rankings?
They're number one in the whole NFC.
Yeah, they're number one in the whole.
Compare them now to the AFC North. You got Pittsburgh, Baltimore,
They're the two best
Cleveland.
divisions in
Those
football.
are the two best.
Ooh, yeah, hands down.
Okay.
All right, Brock Purdy, higher or lower 3,900 passing yards?
That's about 222 yards a game, if my calculations are correct.
Beep, beep, mathematician over here.
What are you, AI? Gruden?
I'm going higher because
Dog AI.
I think the ability that these receivers have and running back have to get yards after contact,
Yes.
yards after catch
Yes.
are unlike any other team in the league. So he could throw a 5-yard check down to Chris McCaffrey, be 30 yards. So I'm going to go higher.
Or Kittle. Flat routes to Kittle,
How
turn
many,
into
how many screens
50?
did you see at
Screens.
Deebo, who's not as good as Aiyuk, by the way, but Deebo taking a 5-yard under route, 45, 50 yards against
Yeah.
the Eagles to the house.
Right.
He's not as good as Aiyuk.
All right, higher or lower 28.5 pass TDs?
I'm going to go higher.
I'm going higher on the touchdowns. I'm going to go lower on the yards. I think San Fran's going to be up in a lot of games and they're going to be handing the ball off. They're going to be getting out of there. I think if he was going to be playing in every game and they were going to be down, he's going to be throwing, I think that would be there. But again, like you said, he can dump it off to Christian McCaffrey and get those touchdowns. He can run those little outs to Kittle.
I'm going to say higher because I think they're going to give up some points. You mentioned their defense last year. They got rid of the defensive coordinator. And you can't blame the coach all the time, guys. You can't really. Sometimes your players got to step up and make some plays too. You know what I mean?
I'm with you.
Quit blaming the coach all the time, Kyle. It's not Wilkes' fault. Nick Sorensen, he's going to come in and run a different version of cover 3 and it's going to be all better. No, they're going to give up a lot of points. So all the hires for the offensive players at San Fran.